Good morning, PRüF community. It is Friday, October 22nd, and we have another community update for you. Okay, so first off, the P2p B2b Launch Pad starting on the 27th. We're pretty excited about that. Going to be a lot of additional press and exposure for the community. We expect to see some community growth during this time, and this will eventually be leading to listing and liquidity. So this is an important step on that road. Okay, we have a really important partnership with Unstoppable Domains. They're a Ethereum and Polygon-based tokenized domain provider. So they have a bunch of good TLDs available for purchase, and these are permanent one-time TLDs. So you purchase them one time, and they are permanently yours. There's no recurring cost to these domains. So that's a pretty exciting feature. They're very affordable. Anybody that wants to take a look at that should check their website out, unstoppabledomains.com. Anyway, we'll be adopting their sign-on. So basically, Unstoppable Domains customers will be able to use their sign-on to provide identity services inside of PRüF. This is a pretty big deal, actually, because one of the things that is very important to our protocol design is verified minting authorities. So Unstoppable Domains, since they are tokenized domains, they provide a unique opportunity for identity verification, because a holder of an Unstoppable Domain token can then create a PRüF node that uses that token as their identification. So basically, for example, the PRüF.crypto domain holder could then utilize their domain token to create a PRÜF.crypto node on PRÜF, and then any assets or NFTs that they minted using that node would be traceable directly to their Unstoppable Domain registration, so that there would be no question about authenticity or authorization for minting products using that node. So that's a pretty exciting development, and we look forward to onboarding Unstoppable Domains and other identity providers in the future. So I've been fairly quiet the last few weeks here. I've been working on some key protocol improvements, and these are pretty big deals we need to have rolled out before we go forward with our final audit here before mainnet. One of these things is chain-based identity providers. So that's identity providers being able to provide identity services on chain. So that's a pretty big deal, and that's what's enabled this partnership with Unstoppable Domains, is reconfiguring the protocol to allow on-chain identity verification through on-chain identity providers. So that's a minor change, but a very important one. We've got that integrated into the contract now, and we can accommodate multiple chain-based identity providers with the new protocol. The other thing is immutable storage management. It's always been a very important feature of PRüF, that PRüF is capable of storing permanent data, on different storage blockchains, or temporary or provisional data on IPFS or web servers. So we have the capability to manage different types of storage in the PRüF protocol, and specifying those storages so that PRÜF assets display correctly no matter where they're being used at. So one of the important things here is, this gets a little bit technical, so bear with me, but say you're storing stuff on IPFS, for example. So it's not really permanent storage, but it's sort of provisional server-based storage. And you're using the Infura node, for example, to store on IPFS and to retrieve from IPFS. Well, if Infura disappears, then you'll no longer be able to make those calls through Infura. So any tokens that then that their protocol is designed to access IPFS through that node will stop working at that point. So what we have developed is a way to tie the API, like Infura.com, to the storage provider, so that as storage providers change or the API changes, we can make those changes and tokens won't suffer damage from things changing in the marketplace over time. In this way, if the access point or the API needs to change for a given storage provider, it can be changed by the node holder or the PRüF DAO, so that there's no interruption in continuity. As well, if a storage provider were to disappear or a new one to pop up, those things can be accommodated as well inside the protocol under DAO management. So that's a pretty big deal. It's kind of technical, kind of boring, but it really speaks to the long-term vision for PRüF and the way that we plan to be to help nodes to create assets that will last into the future indefinitely. So we're not just looking, something that's going to work for the next few months or the next couple of years. We're looking at something that can continue to function with assets minted today, 20 years into the future, still going to work. So that's really the key to the PRÜF vision, is that assets be permanent, at least as permanent as the blockchain itself. So we're pretty excited about those changes. They're going to really bring a lot of added value and flexibility. And it's really some of the first steps in the DAO integration as well. That's one of the reasons why it's been kind of a big deal, is that that eventually PRÜF will be managed by a DAO, but all of those management points and those ways, those mechanisms for management, they have to be built in from the start. So we've been combing through things and making sure that everything is there to be able to provide that kind of flexible community management in the future. So let's see what's going on. Anything new from there? Immutable storage management, storage providers, the base URI. Yeah, we've got that. Okay. So there's another factor as well. So conventional NFTs and tokenized assets that are using the URI field to point to the data that they represent, whether it's on-chain or off-chain. One of the things that those suffer from is that that URI data is either permanent or it's changeable. If it's changeable, then the token really doesn't mean anything specific. It just means whatever the token holder sets it to mean. So those are sort of, those are types of tokens that are not going to likely have any kind of intrinsic value or point to any specific asset in a meaningful way. But if the token holder is not free to change the URI, then the URI is set at token minting typically, and that's going to point to a specific asset on a specific data service through a specific gateway of some kind, whether that's on-chain or off-chain, and that won't be able to be changed. Now, one of the problems with that model is future-proofing it. So with conventional systems, if something changes, like we were talking about an infer node, for example, being changed to a different address or a different protocol, those assets would cease to function. They would stop working. So we have provided a way for node holders to cooperate with token holders. If there's that kind of a change, that the node holder can make the new mechanism for access available. Now, it gets a little bit tricky because the URI itself, not just the API, could change. Say if we're going to use the infer example, let's say that IPFS decides to come up with a new way of doing their content addressable storage and deprecates the old access mechanisms, the old hashes, and you can no longer use the old hashes. I don't think this is likely in the near future, but it could definitely happen at some point that older hash mechanisms could be deprecated and those addresses would no longer work. So basically, with the new system, the node holder can say, okay, well, these are going to become obsolete. The new data that they need to point to is here, and then the token holder can then verify that data in fact represents what they want their token to represent, and then they can, through this cooperative contract, they can then accept that change if they decide to. So that's another important step towards future-proofing this. is making it possible even to change the URI data if the protocol, the hashing protocol or something like that were to change in the future and that URI data no longer was valid. Okay, so some of you may have followed that, hopefully. A little bit technical, I apologize for that, but these are actually important things that are going on, and this is what's been taking up my time recently. Okay, so node governance. Talked a little bit about that through the DAO. That's a pretty big deal because that's really an important, a key part even of the long-term vision for PRüF is that it's DAO managed by token holders and by node holders, so that we have a vibrant and prosperous community moving forward. We've been putting in all of those node governance hooks into the core protocol contracts and getting that ready for audit. So that's been also a pretty good task to make sure that those are all where they need to be and have the right amount of control and influence to make the protocol both trustable and flexible, which is always an interesting compromise. Anyway, so looking ahead, what we're working on right now is big improvements and changes to the interface, accommodating all of these new features, and getting the contracts, of course, out to audit one more time, so we can get those protocols deployed on mainnet. I still expect mainnet launch to be in this quarter. It's going to be late Q4, but I believe we'll be on track for our mainnet launch at this point. Anyway, I think that's about all I've got for you right now. Some real exciting news with the P2p B2b Launch Pad and eventual listing, so that's pretty exciting. That'll be the first step on a long track towards getting listed on many different exchanges, both large and small, and getting deployed on all of the major dexes. That's just going to be a process, and it's something we're going to take one step at a time as we move forward in the market. So anyway, that is what I've got for you today, and I hope everybody's having going to have a good weekend, and we will talk to you next time.